In season 5 of the epic fantasy drama Outlander, we saw our beloved Claire, Jamie, Roger, and Bree forging a new life in colonial America. I'm Rob Licuria, senior editor at Gold Derby, and I am here with co-star Richard Rankin. Richard, Roger's relationship with Bree has been fun to watch and develop and grow. It hasn't always been smooth sailing, but we seem to have said...
It hasn't ever been smooth sailing.
Maybe ever. And she said that to me the other day. She was like, that you had your ups and downs. And but it's good now that they seem to be more settled. But what have you loved most about that relationship with her?
Well, that is what I've loved. That is what I've loved most about the progression of that relationship from season 2 to season 5. Is the ups and downs, is the constant to and fro. I often compare them to sort of rubber bands. They're constantly, snapping back together again. I mean, they have a really deep love for each other. They have such a passion for one another, but at the same time, they're both such individuals with their own, their own opinion, their own sort of their own clear idea of the world. They're very contrasting people in terms of their opinion of the world, and I think that often leads to a bit of conflict between the two of them, because they like to express their views, and obviously as things get sort of het up, shit, I've really fucked this question up.
It's not easy.
I can answer that more simply.
No, I think you did really well. And like when I was speaking to Sophie, she was saying that the way that you both work together was almost like a brother and sister dynamic, which I found slightly bizarre. No, not in a bad way, but what are your thoughts on the way in which you work with Sophie to bring some authenticity to that relationship?
That's an interesting analogy that Sophie's coming up with, a sort of a brother and sister sort of dynamic on set. I can't say that I've ever quite felt that. But you each strive for the sort of truth of your character as individuals before you try and sort of everything. I think a lot of it's already there in the writing. You can feel it. You can feel the sort of conflict between the two of them. They always have these such sort of heated scenes and arguments. Which, sort of, I suppose, sort of just gives you a bigger payoff in season 5. When you see them, you really see the reasons. You really see why Roger and Brianna love each other in season 5, which I think you maybe haven't seen as much as you maybe needed to, like in season 4 and season 3. I think you maybe saw more conflict than you did sort of romance or love between them, which is fine. But I think we sort of dived more into the reasons why, they have such towards each other. They have such a need for each other in season 5, and I think they really sort of invested in that in the writing of season 5. Which is great because they are such a strong couple. They're such a sort of power couple, Roger and Brianna. When you sort of show that side to them, this time, like I was saying, they have their own they are their own sort of mind. So I think that leads to a lot of conflict of opinion with Roger and Brianna. And when they have a conflict of opinion, it usually kicks off with them both because they are so sort of strong-willed, each of them.
Yeah.
But relationship, and it's often a very, very fiery relationship, and that is what I love most about the relationship of Roger and Brianna. It's the thing that I have always been drawn to about that, is there's a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of reality in that as a relationship. It's not a fairy tale relationship, and whenever there's an issue or a conflict or a disagreement between them, then I think they explore it in a really real way. They say things that they don't mean at the time. They say things that they immediately regret. They say things that they regret later on. One of them seen or perceived as being, quite horrible or nasty or unnecessary, but actually, a lot of the time, it's just when tempers have flared or when it's got too heated and they've said the first thing that's came to their mind or emotions have sort of overwhelmed them. And that makes them a heck of a lot stronger for that. That really reinforces the relationship. That really sort of cements the relationship. And I feel in how that relationship's developed, often felt that's kind of what couples are like. To an extent, obviously, theirs is a quite heightened and dramatic version of a relationship. But yeah, I've always really liked that quality of their relationship together.
There's a, as you say, it's a real relationship, I think, and that's coupled with Roger, to me, being a very real kind of guy in this fish out of water kind of scenario. He's a gentle, kind of scholarly guy from the 1960s who's now in this rugged wildness of the American colonial whatever it is, and I like that. To me, that's my in for the show. Do you find that? Do you agree that's what Roger is, and perhaps maybe over season 5 he's become more comfortable in those surroundings?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was certainly a major part of his story through season 5, was him adapting to his surroundings. I say adapting to his surroundings like it was such an easy thing for him to overcome. It wasn't, and it's something that he's obviously still dealing with. But yeah, again, that was a huge appeal of Roger's character, Roger's story. I had obviously the advantage of being able to read ahead a good bit when I started the show, so I knew roughly what was coming for him in season 4 and in season 5, and a fish out of water is exactly how I would describe Roger in season 4 and in season 5. He's very much sort of out of his depth, and he's not equipped to deal with that time period. He may have sort of theoretical knowledge of the time period. I mean, he is a historian, so he'll have a great deal of knowledge and a certain awareness of the time period and the dangers of being in that time period, and but he has absolutely no practical experience. He doesn't know how to hunt. He doesn't know how to shoot. He doesn't know how to do a lot of things that are basically taken for granted in a male of his age in that time period, which is where a lot of the sort of tension comes from between him and Jamie. Is that, Jamie sees that he doesn't have a lot. Not only is he not, the sort of captain of warrior, that he isn't even the sort of template of a man of that time. But it has many other qualities that Jamie just isn't, giving him, the benefit of the doubt of. He's really intelligent. He's very much a diplomat. He's a man he's very good with language, with words. He's an orator. He's very, very smart. He's good at problem solving as well. Just not necessarily conventionally in Jamie's eyes or in the eyes of the time period that he's in. But that was a lot of fun to play. Right, here's this guy. Here's this 1960s, 1970s professor. He's a professional. He's an academic. He's a professor of history from Oxford who's grown up in a sort of relatively sheltered life in Inverness. Let's take this guy and throw him into the 18th century with pirates and pirate ships and guns and battles and all the dangers and the Mohawk and all the other sort of trials that he's in season 5. And how does that transform this man? How does this change this man? How does he come out of this at the other side? Does he come out of this at the other end? And how has this changed him, either for good or bad? How has this altered this character? And that was a lot of fun to sort of work on. That was a lot of fun to plan and develop and work, work out what my route through that was going to be, and what kind of Roger Mac we were going to end up with come the end of it. So for an actor, that was a real sort of, I couldn't really ask for anything more in terms of sort of a character development and journey for a character. There's a heck of a lot in there and a lot to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you say, as an actor, you had a lot thrown at you to do over this season, and we're going to talk about the main highlight, which I think is probably the Ballad of Roger Mac and all of that, the events of that particular episode and the one prior. But before we do, I really loved how this fish out of water starts to find his place, and then he goes through the stones with his wife and child. And then he's spat back out into the place where he started, which kind of then tells him that he's kind of home. And as I mentioned to you earlier, there's going to be some fan questions. One of the fan questions, really good one, from Richard Rankin, France, whoever that is, thank you for your question, wants to know how you felt about Roger fully appreciating that home was where he was and not back in the 60s after going through the States.
It's a beautiful moment. It's such a lovely moment, and thank you for your question. It's like a bit of a slap in the face, isn't it? It's like a wake-up call for Roger. It's like, of course, this is where my home is. This is where my family are. This is where my family is. This is where the people I love are. Brianna and Jeremiah, obviously immediate family, there, his wife and his child, who he loves more than anything and will do absolutely anything for. But he realizes in that moment that, of course, it extends beyond that. It extends to the Ridge. It's Jamie, it's Claire, it's our life here. And I think he had sort of been whisked away with, or it's just that subconscious thing of that the plan was always for him to come back, help bring them both back to the safety of their time. So I don't think he had really stopped to question or stopped to realise that underneath that, he'd really started to become quite attached to life at the Ridge and that time. And, you know, his heart is definitely there. And I think that's through a multitude of reasons. The things, sort of the time spent there with Jamie and with Claire and with everyone else there at the Ridge, and the experiences that they've all shared together, including obviously the season 5. But yeah, I think it was a real moment of sort of obviousness for Roger when they realised that the reason that they've been spat back out is because that is home for them. Yeah, it was a really nice moment in the script, and I don't think that's in the book, but I'm glad that we had it in the show, because it's a real sort of emphatic statement that, you know, Roger and Brianna are where they should be, and it takes away that constant nagging question from Roger of when are we going to be able to return home? Are we going to be able to return home? When actually, in truth, he's never really wanted to. Not for a long time, not for a long time, probably not since season 4. Has he actually wanted to go home? But he had, I mean, if you think about it, Roger's home is absolutely his family. There is nothing back in the 60s, the 70s for Roger. He's given up his home, he's given up his work, he's given up basically his entire life to be with Brianna, and he doesn't do it, you know, begrudgingly. So there is actually nothing for him to return to. But even if there were, I think, you know, he would still agree that their home is definitely, you know, exactly where they are.
Yeah. Let's talk about the major transformational part of the season for Roger, and that, of course, was the near-death experience when, you know, he's found hanging and he's saved by Claire through the tracheotomy, and we spend a whole episode in this silent movie type situation where we are reliving his PTSD. I want to firstly talk about the physical challenges of the hanging itself and how that was for you, having to perform those scenes and how difficult they were.
Well, that episode in particular I was extremely anxious about, because when I read the script, you know, it's such a powerful episode. And off the page, the story tells itself very clearly. A lot of it's in the stage directions, the feelings, the emotions, what's happening are all described in words, but no words are actually spoken. So I thought, oh yeah, this is great to read this in a sort of as a sort of a novel here before me, where I can imagine these feelings, I can imagine these thoughts, I can imagine this psychology. But how the hell am I going to transfer this from page onto screen without saying basically a word for most of it? I immediately sort of appreciated the challenge that was there in that. And I knew that a lot of it was going to be in a sort of the silent portrayal of this. And I knew with that of sort of miscommunicating the character or miscommunicating his feelings, his emotions, and them being sort of picked up wrong by the audience. And there was a real danger of him seeming quite mopey, self-pitying, sort of feeling quite sorry for himself, and really being beaten down and sort of having lost this sort of battle with himself. I knew that there were many ways that could go, and many ways that could be perceived throughout the planning of episode 8. So it was a lot of work. There was a lot of chat about it. I had to be very, very, very specific about how I wanted to sort of tell the story of the trauma that he'd suffered, and the PTSD and the depression, and what was it specifically in any given moment that he was trying to communicate, either with himself or to the people that he was in the scenes with. So it became quite tricky, but when the more I worked at it and the more I tried to sort of specify exactly what it was I wanted to say, rather than just a generic, feeling sorry for myself, I've been, I'm sort of wallowing in the sort of aftermath of the trauma that I've been through. It was important that I be quite sort of specific about all of that, and I think that helped a lot. And a lot of it had to be done, obviously, just with, it sounds really cliche, but in the eyes, or sort of silently, and just physically allow the sort of storytelling to come through, which was the first time I've ever really done it. Like that, was kind of really anticipated parts of the story. But I think we did all right. I think we did okay with that.
Yeah, I think it turned out really beautifully, and most poetically of all, what I really loved, I'm not a book reader, I've never read the books, so I had no idea what was coming, and Roger loses his voice and his ability to sing, and I think in the books he loses his voice completely, but in the show he loses his ability to sing, which is quite heartbreaking for this guy who is a thinker and a feeler, and it reminded me of how much singing you've actually done on the show, and I wanted to know whether firstly you really enjoyed that aspect of his character, and secondly how you felt about the storyline ending with him not being able to sing anymore.
Well, yeah, I've always enjoyed the singing, and it's usually quite a nice wee project to do, because they often let me arrange my own sort of music for the tracks, which is nice, or play it how I want to play it. So I always feel that, so it's always nice anyway, and it's nice because there aren't any other characters like that. It's very unique to Roger. It's very unique to what makes Roger Roger, along with like you saying, him being a thinker, him being a man of words, him being a real sort of he's very unique on the Ridge, I think, and that's very much part of him. So when he loses that, I think it's heartbreaking for Roger, because this is one of the ways that he communicates. This is one of his sort of superpowers, if you like. If all the heroes at the Ridge have their own unique sort of unique abilities, this is certainly one of Roger's, and I think it's really, really a heartbreaking moment when he can't sing, especially when he can't sing to Jemmy, because that's something that he always did, and when that's taken away from him, I think one of the things that sort of spiral him into an even deeper depression is because he then starts to question, well, what good am I? What point is there to me? What do I do if I don't have my voice and if I can't sing? It's obviously not all about the singing. A lot of that is in having lost his voice, which is has a real sort of impact, has a real weight for Roger. But yeah, not being able to sing is. I don't know if we'll ever have that back again, or if that's going to come back, or if it's gone for good. I don't know what the plan is with the writers, but it'd be a shame. It'd be a shame if we can never sing again. I think that might be the plan at the moment, but don't quote me on that.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Are you looking forward to getting back to work for season 6? What are you most looking forward to from what you know about what's coming for us?
What am I most looking forward to? Getting out of this house.
Yeah, I hear.
Having a script and having a working script before me. Having work would be good.
Yeah.
No, I'm really looking forward to getting back, with all the guys. I've missed them all. I've missed the show. And returning to the story. We've left the story at a really, really great point. And we all have a sense of what's to come in season 6. We all have an idea of what's about to kick off. I thought season 5 was amazing. I thought it was incredible. I thought it was such a good season. I thought the performances were all round, absolutely incredible. I thought the story was just really great and constantly moving with, many different aspects, many different storylines running at the same time, and they were all brilliant. It all came together in a really, really great sort of climactic point at the end of season 5. And we have an idea, obviously, of what's coming. We know that the American Revolution is coming historically. Not sure and how that's going to feature in season 6. I haven't read book 6 yet. We all know, as an audience, as our characters, as the cast, we all have an idea of what's looming ahead for the Ridge, and we all know that that's going to have some sort of impact for all of our heroes at the Ridge. So I think with the way that they tend to write the show, I think it's going to be a heck of a ride, season 6. So I'm very much looking forward to diving straight into that.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it too, mate. Oh, I think season 5 was the best one, yeah. And I did not think it was going to be possible to top season 1 and season 2. And here we are. I thought it was fantastic. And a lot of those got to do with the 4 of you guys, the main characters. You guys did such a great job. And thanks again, mate. It was really great to chat with you and providing all those insights about your character. Much appreciated.
Oh, thanks, mate. Anytime. Absolutely anytime. Thanks very much for having me.
Of course. Now, everybody go to Gold Derby, make your predictions while you're at home. You've got nothing else to do, and click subscribe because we've got lots of chats with lots of people from Outlander, including Sophie last week, and coming up, Katrina and Sam and John Gary Steele, and hopefully Trisha Bigger. So join us and see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.